You ready?
Recording now.
Let's go. Hey, what up, world? Boy GB here again. Another episode of the Real License Podcast. Only showing the world that's licensed for real. With me today, we have current president of the Morant Bay High School, New York chapter alumni. She's a pastor, motivational speaker, and recently author. But we're going to get into this later on. So we want to give a big fat welcome to the one and only Miss Maureen Thomas. Welcome, madam.
Hello,
Welcome.
hello, hello. Hello, license, real license. I am finally here. I'm finally here. We're getting this done.
Yes, we're here.
It's really exciting. Thank you for the honor.
Yes. Let me give you your official applause. Welcome you to the show. Finally.
Yes.
Finally.
Finally, we're doing this.
So you know what we do?
Yes.
You know, we represent the crib all day.
That's
every
right.
day.
I got my t-shirt.
We're twinning today.
I got my t-shirt.
We're twinning. So let's get into it, you know?
That's
some,
right.
Some bio stuff. Tell the viewers, for those who don't know, I know, but tell the viewers for those who don't know, what part of Paul country you're from and where did life start for you and some early life stuff.
All right. So I just wanted to add this, that you've had some wonderful guests on your show and that there have been actual transplants.
Shots fired.
But my name is Maureen Thomas. I was born and raised in the parish of St. Thomas in a little town called Soho. And so if you're heading from Kingston, when you get to the roundabout, you would hang left. And we still don't have any number signs on our houses, okay?
Up the hill.
So I would say you would get to Seaport Square, hang right, and you get to Soho. And but that's where I grew up going to high school. But if you go a little bit further around to Middleton Road, as if you're going to Spring Garden, that's where my entire family line is. So I normally tell people, don't ask for my name because I am not that important in those parts. But once you get on the hill, you ask for the Benjamins because that's my mother's maiden name, and you will definitely find me. But I literally grew up in St. Thomas. I am a true-born country girl running around during summertime barefoot eating mango.
Talk about it.
Eating East Indian with a Julie, sweet to come brush me, everything.
Talk about it.
Right?
Talk about that country life.
And then just to remember that at the end of summer, then, your mother come and tell you, in 2 weeks you're going back to school. So you know what that means. So then comes the introduction of the mojo herb, to purge and to cleanse anything. And I think
Speak on it.
I think it was punishment for anything you would have gotten away with during summer that they didn't find out about, because I'm telling you, that was if that was punishment unto itself. But I went to Middleton Primary School. Actually, I went to a basic school in Seafort, and the principal was Miss Flemings at the time. And then I went to Middleton Primary School, and I think that was the best primary school around ever. My principal was Miss Spence. I skipped, I think, grade 1, went to grade 2, and went all the way to the 6th grade. Then my 6th grade teacher was Miss Beckford, and this is where the common entrance process begins, right? And so you never saw home before.
Okay.
What you just know, sunset.
The good old days.
The good old days. You never saw home before sunset. You had to walk with 1,000 bags under your arm, and you couldn't go to bed unless all homework was completed, because that was part that was really, really, really important in getting anything done. And that really left an impression on me to get things done, get your own homework assignments in. And one of the things growing up during that time was that you needed to pass your common entrance the first time around.
Yeah, and
And
some of us did and some didn't, but
some of us didn't.
it was
But
just the roll of the dice.
Exactly. And so I had that pressure. I felt that pressure. And it was something that I wanted to achieve. And I remember that I did. And from there, I went to Morant Bay High School.
But before we get to high
Yes.
school, are there any classmates you can remember from primary school that are you're still cool with or communicate with today?
So I met Dylan Lewis in grade 2.
Big up Ishka, the G. Salute the G, Ishka.
And I think I met Andrew Graham in what?
Know him very well, a classmate of
Third grade,
mine.
in the third grade. Then I had some folks like Debbie Beckford and
I want to correct you on that. Claudia Beckford.
Claudia Beckford. I'm so sorry.
Also known as Debbie.
Also known as Debbie. And I have a handful of people. I can't remember their names right now. See,
Okay.
this is what the age does in the length of time.
Well, you remembered enough. If you remember more than 4 from
Yeah,
primary
right?
school, that's a whole lot. So then the great transition to Highbury took place. What time frame was
I
it?
was 10.
Oh, okay.
I was
Like
10.
me.
And let me tell you that it was an experience because going to school in the country where everyone is your neighbor and everyone is part of your community. You either go to church with them, you go to the store with them, you go to the supermarket with them. So just getting off the hill, going into high school to integrate with people that is from different backgrounds.
And from every
and
freaking
from
community in the parish.
Every community in the parish.
Yeah.
Then it was exciting to me, and then a little bit intimidating also, because then I remember that I was 98 pounds
Soaking wet.
from first form all the way to fifth form.
Okay.
And it was one of those where the only change that I made in terms of maturity was when my uniform decided to fade away. This is, so the greenery is not there anymore. And then you feel like you have some status, walking around, because then in that's when you decided you could show that, wait a minute, I might still weigh the same amount, but I've been here, I've been around the block a little bit. So, but that was a very enlightening experience for me. And then meeting different people, meeting different friends. Then Dylan came with me. And then I forgot to mention Fitzroy Hamilton. He's in London.
Sure if I remember who that is.
He's in London.
He's in London.
He
Okay.
is my bro. We used to. It was like he came in first at Middleton Primary School. I came in second. I was always trailing after him, but we went to Morant Bay High School together. The third form experience, the first and second form, I felt like it was just survivor skills, right?
So hold on, before we get to that point, I want you to speak on that, because everybody I talked to had the same experience, and I'm quite sure it's the same for you. There was this sense of pride when you passed common entrance to go to Morant Bay High School. Explain that to people, because to this day, people always wonder, why you guys so much into your high school? You guys are old
Because
now.
it was the first high school, real high school in St. Thomas, in the parish. And everything else was a secondary school. And yes, we had other high schools that now integrated into being high schools. But it was a big deal.
And people don't understand. We love Morant Bay High School this much because to make it to Morant Bay High School was a big achievement back then.
It was a big.
You had a sense of pride.
You were competing with every single student from the parish of St. Thomas and even in the outskirts of it, that for your name to be placed in the Gleaner, oh, on that day, I remember
it well.
I remember my name being, somebody told me that I was there going like this. And everybody's name was being called, and I'm like, oh my God. And the teachers were laughing at me because they realized your heart's beating, and the sense of fear and excitement. What if my name isn't called, but what if it's called? And I remember when I went home, my grandmother was out at the gate waiting for me. She said, "Here she comes! Here she comes!"
And the whole neighborhood telling you congratulations.
Whole neighborhood telling you congratulations.
I don't think these kids have that experience now.
That.
When your whole neighborhood, everybody you see is telling you congratulations because you passed your common entrance to go to Morant Bay High School. It was a big deal, and that is why we are still so passionate about our high school. That's a part of it.
That's a part of it. And I remember that's one of the points where my dad like literally hugged me. I remember that moment to this day when he came home and he knew I had passed, and he grabbed me and he picked me up and spun me in the air. I will never forget that. That is a moment I will cherish for the rest of my life, because for what your parents at that time, what your parents didn't achieve, that they placed everything in you and had that confidence that you could do something, and for you to accomplish it, it was an achievement not just for us, but for them also. And you could feel that. You could feel that your name being called with my grandparents.
There was just something in the atmosphere. There was just something in the air when you pass your common entrance. I don't know if we could
it's
really
like
explain the feeling.
You walk on high. You walk with a set. You walk a little bit off the ground for a little while until that first experience just walking up Highbury Hill, because it's like you hear about it from others, and just to experience it. So I don't think the first year of high school was ever a bad experience, because just the transition to get into a vehicle where normally I would walk to school, now I had to take a taxi to Morant Bay and then
walk in the patch of green.
Walk with the patch of green.
Up Highbury Hill. So let's fast forward a little bit to when we actually got to Morant Bay High School. What are some of your most memorable moments at Morant Bay High School, whether with teachers or classmates? Let's start with classmates. Who were some of the people that you remember distinctly from Morant Bay High School in your time?
In my time, Jacqueline Penn.
Big up Jackie statement.
Rosemary Watson.
Oh, okay. Rosie, big up yourself.
I remember Valerie. I can't remember her last name right now. Then I had Maxine Anderson. I had Dylan with me again. Ishka.
Ishka, big up yourself.
I had Dylan, and I had Fitzroy, and I had Christopher Crumby. Oh, glory. I had Peter Merchant.
Aganel.
Yay. Then there was Chris Phillips. And,
Chrissy P, big up yourself, baby girl.
And Jasmine Mannerts. And so while some of these girls and guys, we were not in the same forms, but just with the whole familiarity of being in forms together and passing, then, but definitely one of my most memorable times was in third form, and I was in 3-3, and I was in that mid pack where this is a form that you're trying to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And
you had to do like 13, 14 subjects.
It is something that stuck, because the books and the bags were so heavy at the time, but I think my classmates were more memorable during that time, because I think that transition into adulthood, where you had students and teacher conflicts. And during that season, we had quite a lot of it. I remember one time my entire class was on the verge of suspension, and I had to go home and tell my mother. I said, listen.
With some of those names you just mentioned, there's some G's, male and female, in that batch you just mentioned.
I said, listen, if you see me come home early one day, and this is not, class has not ended yet. I said, it's not me. It's not me. But my teacher told me that Peter has to suffer from Paul, But I think it was during those times when we were having conflicts where people were, growing and turning into young adults. And there were situations where there was a lot of talking back and forth. And, during that time, teachers needed the utmost respect, and I give my hat off to any teacher, because at any time respect is required and it is needed.
Who were some of the teachers you remember, though?
I remember Mr. Coates.
Big up to Mr. Coates, legendary art teacher.
Oh yes. I remember Mr. Morris.
The art teacher also.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember Miss Price.
Mathematics.
That's right.
Yeah.
I remember one time I said to her, she asked me a question, and I wasn't really paying attention, but I had the answer. And I said, tree, miss. And she was like, oh, yes, that's lovely. Which one's outside? And I never forgot that I was in high school. And this was a time where you had to learn to transition from just speaking patois all the time to actually utilizing the English language as is.
And after 30 years plus, both of us live in America, we can still chat patois
Yes,
anytime.
chat patois anytime. And so those were some of my memorable. I had a Spanish teacher. What did I say? I can't remember his name right now.
Kumar?
No, was it Mr. Kumar? No, it wasn't Mr. Kumar. I can't remember his name, but he was a very Mr. Satar. Mr. Satar. Mr. Satar for Spanish.
Yeah.
I remember Miss Parkins for French.
Moppy.
Yes.
And don't you ever call her Moppy. Back in the day, you'd be in all kinds of trouble. Yeah, I remember her.
Absolutely. But Morant Bay High School did something for me, because it issued a sense of pride, and it made me realize that, sometimes people used to look down on country people. Mm-hmm. It was one of those things where I realized that no matter where you're from, it is not, it's how you define yourself. And it defined us to always.
And let me say this.
Yes.
In every aspect of life, especially when it comes to the parish of St. Thomas, the life the bench way.
Yes.
And as long as we are alive, we have to come off of the bench and we are going at the game.
That's right. Yeah. So it's like, as long as it was a sense of pride to push. And I remember I was kind of a lazy high schooler, but it didn't give you the opportunity to just sit down and just not do something.
You had to do something.
You had to do something.
Even when we weren't doing all that we were supposed to do, you had to do something. Trust me. Trust me.
Because it was going, it gave you a sense of standard that you had to live up to. Mm-hmm. And even if you didn't want to come up to it, you had to rise to some situation and some challenges. Mm-hmm. I was more like on the side. I didn't participate in sports because I was too lazy. And I had potential, but I did not aspire to any of those potential.
You never want to sweat.
But I loved all the sports though. I loved all the sports. I was in the bleachers cheering and doing, but it gave me a sense of pride that even when I walked away and came to the United States, just to be a part of that culture still was important to me. So I used to start supporting my alma mater when I left, and every year I would go up. My father used to support it also, and he never used to tell me about it. It was just that when he came back home on a Sunday morning, then he would say, "Oh, where were you last night?" And I'm like, in my bed. He's like, "Oh, so why didn't you go to the Morant Bay High School thing?" I said, "If you had told me." And so it took Nicole Young.
Okay.
I met her at a barbecue one year, and she came over and she started bad me up. She was like,
Salute to Nikki.
she's like, "My girl, this is your high school, and you should have a sense of duty and a sense of pride." And she really, really poked me. And I showed up at a meeting, and I decided to stay and participate, and really was part of the alumni board for the New York chapter for a very long time. I was not, like I said, I was never a popular student, but my passion for my high school was there and is there and always been there. And so I participated in whatever was needed, whatever part that was needed was done, and I will still do it today. I took a break. I've been taking a break for the past year from the whole alumni functions, just to take care of some stuff for myself. But I still bleed green.
All day.
Bleed green.
I mean, you made it to president, so that speaks for itself. But it was a rough year. It was COVID, and you had this masterpiece to take care of.
I had some things to do.
You had some things to do. Free to
Yes.
be. We're gonna go more into this in a few, but
I had some things to do, and I had some personal things that I had to do. But then other people, Mr. Charles Murray, Andrea Owen Boyd, Nicole Young,
the troopers,
Joyce, everybody
Joyce
still,
and Neva and
everybody's still,
Council and
everybody's still there doing what they had to do. But it was an amazing run, and I appreciated being a part of that family.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, understood. So let's talk a little bit about your pastoral duties and your walk. I have a Maureen story. This is how I know my friend was her walk with the Lord was serious. So it's about 10, 11 years ago, I got a phone call. I was invited to a barbecue in Connecticut. I don't know if you remember this. And the burgers.
Yes.
Big up to Michelle and Marcine and Colin Burger. So, I needed someone to ride with me to Connecticut. So I figure I'm going to drive from New Jersey. I'm going to swing through the BX, scoop up Maureen, and we're going to drive up there to, where's that again? Is it Bloomfield, Connecticut?
I have no idea, but we went.
So we up there in Connecticut. We weren't at the barbecue more than 10, 15 minutes. I'm seeing some old school friends of mine from License, Delia, and Genia. We just get ready to chill and talk. Maureen was like, "Bar, I forgot church I'm on." I'm like, yeah, remember, man. The next 5 minutes. At what time? Remember, I forgot church I'm on. And I promise y'all, we did not spend 1 hour at that barbecue because my friend over here was so adamant about coming back to the Bronx so she will not be late for church. And that's when I know things change.
Amen.
Things change.
Things have changed.
So that's where it really started for you. Or it was, building up before that.
I think I grew up. Most of us grew up in church in Jamaica, and so did I. And I think I took a break. The moment I got on the plane from Kingston and landed in New York City, I decided that I was going to give church a rest. And I did. And I did. So, which is why he knows when I had gone back. Seriously. I gave church a rest for a very long time because I wanted to experience life, whatever that might have been. And it was fun. I think something, I don't remember what was happening in my life, but something was going on. And when I went to church one day, and a pastor was talking about Psalm 51, and as he began to speak, I heard the Holy Spirit just talking to me. And that's when I knew. I said, okay, I cannot play around with this anymore. I cannot play around with God anymore. And it might not have been important for anyone else, but it was important for me. And for that day, here I am. Here I am still.
Pastor Maureen Thomas, a friend of mine.
That's right.
No longer in the streets with us. Yeah.
That's right. And it took a while for me to get to that. It took a while for me to get to that portion. Because even when I was in church, I went and I said, I just want to be a good Christian. And in being a good Christian, I just wanted to go pay my tithes, listen to the word, say it was a good scripture and a sermon, and come back home. And then as I got to understand what my role and my responsibility was, I couldn't run anymore.
Yeah, so before we were interrupted, I just want to show you guys this great masterpiece we're going to get into pretty soon. But before we get into that, got some other...
We have some real license thing to do.
Yeah.
So we're here today, not just to talk about me, we're here to talk about the man himself. And it's with great pleasure that I get to interview him. Because over a year ago, I went back and did my research. It was over a year ago, he said to me, I got a voice note. Hey, I'm about to do something. And I wanted to share some stuff with you. And we spoke and I said, whatever it is that you're doing, do it.
Get it done. Were the exact words. I love it. Get it done. I remember that.
Exactly. Because it's one thing when you hear someone with passion and you realize that they truly have something that if you can support them in any way, shape, or form, that is what I'm going to do. So I want to introduce the one and only Mr. Gary Brown. But I want to segue into how I actually met you.
Okay.
And so, because I want to
This is going to be interesting.
I want to tell the world this. So I met you while not meeting you. So I think it was maybe a break, like one of our 15, 20-minute break or a lunch break at school one day. And we're passing by the flag, where the flag is at school. And
it's kind of close to the principal's office.
There you go. And so I'm walking by and I heard, this conversation. It was a very loud, passionate conversation. And it was this person right here. And he was cussing somebody out. And not with curse words, but just, letting them know a thing or two. And he was with his sister Carlene. And when they were finished, they hugged each other. Come here, my sister. Come here, my brother. And I said, okay, this is a path I must not cross.
That was a dangerous combination back in the days. That's the 1-2 punch back in the day.
So, which is why I said I met met you before you even knew me.
Even though it's still a dangerous combination, one still in the streets and one in the church.
Hey, Carlene. And so when I wanted to introduce to him this way, because it's always just an amazing experience how people meet and how the parts of our life cross at different segments.
And damn near 40 years later, we're still
Hey, here we are. So I wanted to ask you, as you've been interviewing others, where were you born?
Well, obviously, St. Thomas, Jamaica, more specifically licensed. Like, my life started on Dalton Avenue, and my life in Jamaica stopped on Dalton Avenue, because when I jumped in that car with Squidly, Mr. Dennis Phillips, to take me to the airport to migrate, I left from 7 Dalton Avenue.
Wow.
So, you know.
And where's Dalton Avenue?
Dalton Avenue is just up the street from Johnstone Crossing. There's McCarthy Avenue, and then there's Dalton Avenue with Top Road and Baton Road, known as Soldier Town. And, you know, it's called Soldier Town because a lot of people that owned the land around there were soldiers that went to World War II, I think. So they were kind of like given land, so to speak, when they came back homes, and they built homes, and you know, that little community is known as Soldier Town. So if you hear somebody refer to Soldier Town license, you have to specifically be from there to know that. You understand what I'm saying?
That's good.
And that's where life started for me. My grandmother kind of like was the matriarch of the family, and she lived right there, 7 Dalton Avenue. And a lot of people might remember me from license school. Me and my sister Carlene, we were those two little children that was helping this lady clean license school back in the 80s. If you remember Miss Eva Manners, we have 2 little kids always are cleaning this license school at evening times. That's me and my sister Carlene. So yeah, I'm straight out of license, but I have connections all over the parish.
What connections do you have?
I don't know what it is with my parents. Both of them had this fascination with Yallis. My mom lived in Yallis somewhere around the late 80s, late 70s to early 90s, late 70s to early 80s. And my father also transplanted to Yallis, and he lived in different parts of Yallis, from Mount Pelion Housing Scheme to Baptist to Poor Man's Corner. But my mom lived in Pondside, like right there in this lane called Champagny Lane. Miss Champagny, big up to everybody named Champagny and Wright, and everybody that from Pondside that I know from back in the day, like, you know, the Rakes brothers, the Ramsey brothers, Marvin, Ron, Gary, Paul Rakes, Peter Rakes, and everybody in that vicinity. When I was a little kid, I think I moved there when I was 8 and left there when I was 11. When we moved back to Lyson, there was so many people in that little vicinity that I still remember to this day. You know, like I said, all those names I just mentioned. And I traveled back and forth between Yallis and License School as a kid by myself for like almost 3 years.
Wait, so even though you were living in Yallis, you went to...
I was still in License School.
Wow.
I'm going to tell you a story about that. My mother refused to let me, my sister and I, miss out on the teachings of Miss Joyce Cousins at License School.
Okay.
So she was like, me not transfer them till after common entrance.
See, you have to seal the deal.
yeah. So, you know, I traveled back and forth as a kid. Like, when I look back at it now, like, all them Kayson bus and Sunray bus and Irving bus, and, you know, me and some people that I knew from back then. Kevin Ricketts, my friend from basic school, you know. We used to take the bus used to pick him up at Roselle. Yeah. And we go to License School. And my friend Ali and Martin, yo, Wigan, big up yourself. Me, I come from far. He's a friend of mine. He never went to Morant Bay High School. We went to Calabar, but we went to License School together. So, you know, even some of the older guys, like this kid, Lighty. Yo, Lighty Thomas, big up yourself.
Lighty.
Not LP. We're gonna get
LP.
to the general LP now. Mr. Light Thomas, big up yourself, Lighty. From your little boy, we know them one day. You know, the man used to jump off of the bus out of Pomfrick, you know, so, you know, I have this Yallis thing, you know. I spent many summers on Mount Pelion Housing Scheme because my dad lived there. But then we moved back. We moved back to to license 83. I think my first 2 weeks of high school I was still in Yellows.
Okay.
And then we moved back to license 1983 and back home, back home. Because even though I was living in Yellows, I was in license every day. You know what I mean? So that's the part of the journey. And then the last 5 months of grade 6, after I took the common entrance, I went to Yellows Primary.
Wow.
For 5 months. So
after the common entrance.
After the common entrance. Yeah.
Your mom said, "Okay,
No,
you're good now."
After you take it, no, you can stop the traveling now. So I went to Yellows Primary for 5 months.
Wow.
There are some people that I'm still friends with today because of that little 5-month period at Yellows Primary. It's
Who are they?
Kevin Kidd, aka Juba, Dean McLean, aka Juba. I told Juba that,
Hey, Juba.
Dean Allen, Doreen Duffus, Howard Williams, Hyacinth Walters, a couple of girls named Panton, I think is Margaret Panton and Jennifer Panton. I still remember the names.
Yes, you do. Yes,
I still
you
remember
do.
the names.
Which is
Claude
impressive.
Garden, and I still remember all those people from my LS primary days. And then like we talked about earlier, the common entrance result came out, and
that's what I wanted to ask you.
I was Morant Bay High School bound.
Where were you on that day when it came out?
I was in Yellows.
Okay.
Pondside Yellows. I remember walking to Backland to go to the shop. There was 2 shops in the Backland. You come out to Champagne Lane, you make a right, and you go down the street right by the Catholic Church, and you go up at Backland and Miss Turgat shop. Rest in peace, Miss Erla. That's the mother of Mr. Eric Turgat.
Okay.
I remember going to the shop and coming back down the street, and I had a friend named Brock. I can't remember Brock's right name. You probably remember Brock. His mother lived right next to the pharmacy.
I remember the name.
Yeah, and I remember his mother was like, "Hi Gary, congratulations, man." I was like, "Oh, what happened?" She's telling me, but the people found out before I did.
Okay.
That I had passed my.
Did you have to reserve the newspaper before, like weeks before, or you just had it where she just called you out, or you were going to the store to get a newspaper?
Had the newspaper, so she saw my name before I did. So when I realized what she was trying to tell me, the walk from right here to my house was like
the fastest you've ever gotten there.
Yes, and then I got my hands on the newspaper and actually saw my name in the paper that I was Morant Bay High School bound, and the rest is history. History.
Wow. So what was it like your first day?
Before our first day, let's talk about the orientation day.
Okay.
When you had to go to general office to get your books and your schedule
and your schedule.
So
and your PE outfit.
And so I'm in the line, but there was this guy that keeps talking.
Yeah.
And he talked the whole time we were there, but he was funny and he knew everybody.
Okay.
And I was like, who's this dude? What is it about him? Why he knows everybody? How he knows everybody? But he was hilarious. He was, you had to pay attention to him. And that was the one and only Mr. O'Neill Stewart, a.k.a. Mr. Neely Stewart, me G from day one. Big up Gamma Neil in London town.
Neely Stew.
And we became friends since that. Before the first day of school, it was actually orientation. And he's been my friend ever since. I spoke to him a few days ago. Damn near 40 years later.
I want to interject because the summer before I came. So now, I wanted to ask you about who were some of your friends in high school.
So, as I said before, I met the one and only Mr. Neely Stew since not even the first day of school, since orientation.
Yes.
He was a comedian, he was funny, and he knew everybody, and we've been friends ever since then. So I started first form with, I was in 1-1,
Okay.
I did bright one time. I know me an idiot.
Okay, here we go.
So my first form was, Althea Walker, Debbie and James, the same Claudia Beckford, Lisa Beck Crosman, Thaddeus Donald is probably from your neck of the woods.
There's some names.
Wayne Wilmot, Dave Daniels, Walter Fletcher. Big up yourself, Bunny, in Toronto. I'm a G. You know, and that was my first form, and some of those people I'm still cool with them to this day. And
Yes, yes.
later on in life, I mean, even Pecos, you know, we are come from license school, but we weren't in the same first form. I think he was in 1-3, and he was more of a rival then, because you know, 1-1 people never necessarily get along with everybody else down the corridor, you know.
There was a little bit of a divide.
Yeah, second form was different, you know. It was different batch of guys: Keeble Downey, Donovan Coombs, Robert Murphy, and you know, Tanya White, my sister Carly. We ended up in the same class again. And,
Yeah.
You know,
Some friends.
Winston Thompson, Margaret Barkley, and you know, I always tell people about my 2-3 and my 3-3 at Morant Bay High School.
That's
you know,
it.
we were a unit. I remember like our homeroom was in third form actually.
Was it still a part of where the teachers and the staff room was?
Hold up.
Your third
Second form. My second form homeroom was right next to the PE department. You know
Okay.
that one
Yes,
room next to the
yes,
PE department.
yes.
And that was a serious year. Then third form, we were literally above Mr. Jackson's office.
That's right. So where he would come up the step
And just
put his hand akimbo and look up. Not one word spoken.
listen. When Jacko walked up them steps, sometimes he didn't have to say anything, and it was total.
Total silence.
I always remember my second and third form because we had some really quiet children from church home, but it didn't matter what we did, they will never tell on us because we had some thugs in the class too. Joseph Grant, aka Jughead, rest in peace. Jughead was my classmate in second and third form.
Yeah.
And you know him, he was always up to no good, and they will never tell on us.
But that's class for you. And this is what makes the memory at school, because then you had the good, you had the memories, you had the, let me call them the adventures. That makes even this conversation worthwhile, you know? And so it's not just about hitting the books, which was highly recommended and pushed on every level, but the interjections in between.
I mean, comfort form, that's when, you know, my three closest friends today, that's when we got really close. And
who are they?
those are the one and only Mr. Lloyd Phillips, Mr. Leon Richardson, and the Glamour Neil himself, Mr. O'Neill Stewart. And that's when we started calling ourselves the Fame 89 crew.
Fame 89.
And you know,
we're still there, it's still going there, strong.
Still there, still ain't going nowhere. And we've been friends since high school, and we're friends. I spoke to all three of them the last couple of weeks. You know
That's
what I mean?
right. And so I'm gonna interject on the friendship, right?
Yes.
Because now, when I said I didn't know you, I knew you, but we weren't friends.
No, not yet.
Not yet. And I knew of your friendships. So it was not until I came back from the United States. So I'm going to hold that conversation. This is just a plug-in, okay?
Sidebar.
To the friendships that's going on here.
Some serious friendships.
Yes. But then, what teachers left an impression on you?
Well, Miss Bell.
Yes.
Miss Bell was like, because like I said, first form was in 1-1, and Miss Bell was my form teacher. And, you know, it was the bright class, and Miss Bell had standards. And, you know, she always talk about a day of reckoning. Miss Bell will always remind you that whatever you're doing,
there's a day.
A day of reckoning.
Coming.
And I got in some trouble. And you remember they used to give you lines?
Yes,
Miss Bell made me write Ecclesiastes chapter 3 over 500 times.
Which one? In every season?
The point was there's a time and a place for everything.
And the time and season was not then. And you will never forget it.
Yeah, so that is Miss Bell. Salute to Miss Bell. I'll never forget that there's a time and a place for everything. And I think around Mr. McDermott, Mr. Harold McDermott was my English teacher. Mr. McDermott made English fun, like, you know, English language and literature. You don't want to miss his class because it was fun. Also, Mrs. Shepherd.
Absolutely.
When I didn't have Mr. McDermott, I would have Miss Shepherd, and there's certain things you always remember about Miss Shepherd. I remember Miss Shepherd used to have this saying, "Patience is a virtue, but sometimes it hurts you." And that's true. Facts. So there's, you know, Mr. McDermott, Miss Bell, Miss
Yes.
Shepherd, and of course you have teachers like Mr. Ossa, because Mr. Ossa taught me accounts and POB. I was terrible at accounts, but I was good in POB. Like that.
Principles of business.
I left Morant Bay High School with a range 1 in Principles of Business.
Nice.
I don't know if it helped me in a life, but
I think it's coming together now. I think it's coming together now.
yeah. So, you know, Mr. Hossa, and Mr. Hossa was a different type of teacher. He was, you know, because he's Rastafari, and there was something about Miss Wholeness and Mr. Hossa.
Yes.
Like, students just gravitate towards them because they were down to earth,
Yes.
and they were cool. They're brilliant, but they were relatable.
Yes.
You understand?
That's a perfect word you would say.
You went to Morant Bay High School in the 80s. You have to remember Miss Wholeness. Miss Wholeness never taught me. She was just a teacher that everybody liked. You know what I'm saying? She was just Miss Wholeness.
Miss Wholeness.
And then Mr. Sopraya.
Yes.
Mr. Ziggy Sopraya. Rest in peace, Mr. Sopraya.
Rest in peace, Mr. Sopraya.
Every time I hear the sound, every what's the Heroes Day, he would do that thing, that poem. And you know, teachers like that, you know, they will remain in the memory forever and ever.
They left a mark. It's like they were like the staple of our Morant Bay High School culture. Because they formed a culture that I think, which is why we are so dedicated to the alma mater, even to this day.
Even to this day.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Morant Bay High School will always be a part of me. Sometimes people don't. Not everybody likes or respect the love for the alma mater. It can build resentment. Please believe me.
And I get that. I get that. I think I find myself, and you too, if I can speak for you, fortunate to be on the end where we can say the love is really strong. And then I can respect the others who does not feel
the significance. They don't get it.
They don't get it.
They don't get it.
And that's okay too, because then this is part of life, that life throws us some stuff, and sometimes it does not come out tasting sweet. But it's
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
And it's gonna be what it's gonna be.
But I'm holding strong.
Yeah.
So as we have been moving on. So I left Jamaica right after high school, and you were still there. And I remember coming back home to Jamaica, and I am going to visit my sisters. So this is my license connection. This is my plug, okay? And so my sisters Claudia and Raquel lives in License, and I get off the plane. I go up to my grandmother's house. I'm up in Soho, and I said I have to go see my sisters. I get there, and this one person that I wanted to avoid forever is the one person who is sitting on my sister's veranda. Okay, and we're not saying porch, the veranda. And here he is, and my heart skipped a beat, and I said, "Oh dear Jesus, help me, Father God, amen." And so I think I avoided conversations with him more than just saying hi. And I remember you were in the car, and you ended up taking me home. And I was very cool with Dennis. Hey!
Big up yourself, Squidly.
And Dennis took me home, and you came to the United States almost a few months later. And in my living room, in my life, wherever, however. And here we
And
are.
the rest is history.
The rest is history. And so it just goes to show you that life does not stay the same.
No.
And things don't always stay the
And
same.
we evolve.
And we evolve. and so the mouth is still there, the brain is still there, but now he's part of my family. And so I stand protected and safe on this side. But
Don't cross me. You will lose me.
one of the things I wanted to ask you now is to speak about the real license.
The real license, the podcast idea, like I said, it popped up in my head about a year and a half ago. Just because I like docuseries, I like real stories. Like I watch a lot of interviews and stuff. And one day I just said to myself, like, why can't I see people on YouTube that I actually know, like who have, good stories, fascinating stories. Like, do you have to be a celebrity or an entertainer or somebody with some type of scandal to be on, to be heard or to be seen. So I figure I'll do something about it. So that's when I called you with the idea. But then came COVID.
Yes. There it was.
Then came COVID and everything had to be like, hold on. But I kept making plans, coming up with ideas and, learning what to do, how to go about it. And here we are today. With the Real License Podcast.
And I know you're the Real License Podcast. I'm going to call you, people have been calling you the ambassador.
I don't know about that.
And I fully endorse that name because, like I said, I wasn't necessarily popular, but I just had good friends and acquaintances. So even when things were going off on social media, I would hear parts of story, but I said, if anyone will know the full details, it would be this person right here. And so I would call, voice notes, send a message like, what's happening? Fill me in.
You know what I think? What I think that is,
Yes.
to be honest with you, I think I inherited that from my parents.
How so?
Because my mother and even my father too, like, they're not perfect, but I'll tell you one thing. Their friends are the same friends they had when they were kids.
Wow.
And my mother, I call her the licensed historian. She doesn't even know that I call her that. If there's something about my neighborhood, licensed Jamaica, that I want to know, ask my mother. My mother could tell you who she went to Johnstone school with. And exact names and who they're connected to, and you know what I'm saying. My mother could tell you every single thing about the community of people she knew from Johnstone, Lyson, Morant Bay High School. That's just how she is.
What about your dad?
And my dad is his friends that are his friends now.
Yes.
They were probably his friends when he was a teenager.
Wow.
So wow. I honestly think I inherited that.
You inherited something, because even listening to your past interviews, just the way you have been able to pull people out and ask them these specific questions, and even when I call you just for one set of information, you paint such a full picture that I'm always amazed.
And people say I have good memory. I don't even know if I have good memory, but certain things, like if I was there, if I lived it, a good possibility I'm going to remember.
Yes. and so your experiences is admirable because it's not just in one vein. It's all across the board. The music, the
sports.
friends, the sports, the type of sports, everything that I could possibly think about to sit here and
because a lot of times you call me to remind you about certain things. I'm just like, oh, you never know that, my girl.
Exactly. And most of my response is like, no, so you're going to bring me up to speed.
I used to tell Maureen that I am her ears to the street. When she want to remember some St. Thomas, some Morant Bay High School, so she called me. Like, and if I don't know, I can call the United Kingdom to the one and only Mr. O'Neill Stewart.
That's right. That's right. So I never felt like I was limited because I knew I had.
Just holler at me. If I don't know, I know somebody who knows.
I had Mr. Gary Brown in my back pocket to feed me information. And so this is how I always looked, like socially aware. And so with the Real License podcast now, how is that going?
It launched.
Yes.
It took a minute because of COVID, and then I had to work out some legal stuff. Then that's taken care of because, you know, in this day and age, you got to be careful about your brand and your what names you use and copyright and all that stuff. So it's here now. I decided to name the podcast of my hometown. It was like a no-brainer. If I'm gonna choose a name, I mean, I have license tattooed on my arm for 23 years. I mean, you've seen on a particular vehicle that I have the license plate. like my trademark attorney said, you've been branding yourself your whole life and don't even realize it. So it was a no-brainer. I choose to use license because I truly feel that, you know, I'm from a special place, and I know everybody feels that about where they're from, but I'm gonna tell you why I feel like I'm from a special place. It started in the summer '84. I don't know if you remember this, but the summer '84 Olympics was going on, and Jamaica won the silver medal in the 4x100 meters.
See what I mean? Go ahead.
If you go on YouTube and you pull up 1984 4x100 meter Olympics, you will see Jamaica was in lane 1. That guy starting off the race for Jamaica is Albert Lawrence, aka Gary Lawrence, from License, St. Thomas, Jamaica.
Wow, look at
you
that.
know, and I remember when that race took place, there was a buzz in License because I saw me a Strega brother from down the street, like I actually know who he is, and I felt like we're somebody. What? I felt proud to be from License because somebody from my neighborhood just won a silver medal at the Olympics.
Wow.
And I felt like I'm from somewhere.
Of course.
So among other things, but License to me is what Brooklyn is to Jigga Jay-Z. License to me is what Compton is to Dr. Dre. License to me is what Seaview is to Shabba Rankin and Bounty Killer. You know what I'm saying? There's something about home.
That's right.
And even though it hasn't been my home for 3 decades, it will always be my hometown.
It is always home.
Always be my hometown. So anyway, you see me License forever. Morant Bay all day. That's my city, my place.
So what do you want to, in terms of your vision, how far do you want to take?
My vision is to basically put St. Thomas people, because they like to bench St. Thomas.
Yes.
I want to show the world
exactly
that greatness comes from St. Thomas.
That's right, because we're one of those two people who, you remember when we first came here, people was like, everybody was from Kingston.
Let me give you a joke. Let me tell you a story. I have a friend, good friend of mine, still a good friend of mine. When I met him, he was telling me he's from Kingston, but his father is from St. Thomas. So I said, yo, Orlando where my father come from, you know. But he was with some of his G homies, some of his rude boy friends from Kingston, and he wasn't necessarily like loud about it.
Right.
So I'm like, Bridget, you whisper. So yeah, I know Orlando, man. My place, man.
Yeah.
And you know, everywhere I go, people from St. Thomas, they used to like
whisper
it.
Yeah.
I'm like, who raised these people? Like, y'all are ashamed of where y'all from?
Yes. I used to climb lime tree and go. This was my bus,
like,
imitate one stop driver, you know, climb some tree and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was one of those experiences where it doesn't matter where you're coming from, and you cannot. It's nothing to be ashamed of, because it should not. How would I say? Put a damper on where you've gone to even be ashamed to highlight, to say, hey, I started here. I started here. Die hard, born country girl. Hey, I claim St. Thomas like my name.
And in the words of Miss Grace Jervis, I remember when she spoke at the Morant Bay High School reunion.
Yes.
You say we are not a country school, we are a school in the country.
That's right.
We are not a country parish, we're just a parish in the country.
That's
the
right.
country is an attitude and it's a behavior.
Right.
Ain't nothing country about us. We're just a parish in the country. What the song say? No one on the corner got swagger like us.
Don't put me to shame because I don't know that song.
Clearly, you're not going to hear that in church, Marie.
Let us speak about your MO movement.
Movements of Jah people was like during COVID, like, you know, people were scared to go outside. So I started going outside and recording some exercise videos and post them on Facebook. And it turned into a monster. And movements of Jah people were born. You got involved too.
I got involved. I walked a few steps. Listen, there were some beasts.
Oh yeah.
There were some beasts. Still people.
Still
people going at it. I have the t-shirts.
So MOJP was born with me just saying it one day on social media, and then the t-shirts came, and then that led into, you know, the t-shirt line, License Apparel, where you can get t-shirts like this. Go to the reallicense.com, real with 2 E's. You could get t-shirts to represent St. Thomas, represent Jamaica, represent the West Indies. Just check out the website, man.
Check out the website. So, listen, I was honored to interview you because I've been waiting for this moment because I wanted everyone to hear who you are and what you're about. And I'm absolutely elated that you started. And whatever this movement, the MOJP movement, the Real License podcast, highlighting who we are,
where we're from,
what we're about,
and where we're going.
Because
you see where we're going is to the sky. So just walk with us. But also, it's been a pleasure to talk to you too. We're going to have a part 2 because we're going to dissect and analyze this masterpiece here. Like I said, if you don't have this book, you should go on Amazon and get it. It's lovely next to me. It's a great read, but in part 2, we're going to get into it and chop it up and talk about the journey and what sparked this book and how was it writing it. And
how was it for you reading it?
Ah, Jesus.
We leave that alone.
Why you couldn't write this book 8 months ago before I went through some things that I went through? I needed this book 8 months ago, but it still can help me.
Ecclesiastes 3.
And that was it in the book, literally. So catch us on part 2 when we dissect this masterpiece by my friend Maureen Thomas, okay? Peace and love.
Peace.
See you on part 2.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Check out our website, thereallicense.com. Join our exercise program, Movements of Jah People. See you next time on The Real License, the only show that's licensed for real.
Yeah, you heard what my baby said.